Welcome back to MKTG Mindset, Episode 4. We're kicking off a fascinating deep dive today, asking a big question, really, that applies to any brand. What makes something like PlayStation transcend being just a product and become, a true cultural phenomenon?
It's a really compelling question, actually, because when you look at it, PlayStation started as, well, a completely rejected concept, a failed partnership.
Right.
Yet today, it's not just a gaming console, it's an entire ecosystem, a lifestyle, a global community. For millions of people, PlayStation evokes this deep, almost familial emotional connection. It's really part of their identity.
Exactly. An emotional experience, a lifestyle. I mean, that's a huge leap from basically a discarded tech add-on.
Yeah.
So how do they pull that off?
Well, that's what we're diving into.
Right. Our mission in this deep dive is to unpack the incredible story of how PlayStation masterfully transformed a gaming device into a global marketing powerhouse and ultimately a true cultural icon. And I think you're going to uncover some fantastic, actionable lessons along the way that apply to really any brand seeking to build that kind of lasting loyalty.
Definitely.
So let's start at the very beginning, because the origin of PlayStation it's a story of a truly bold pivot. Picture this. It's the late 1980s. Sony, giant in electronics, was actually collaborating with Nintendo on a CD-ROM add-on for the immensely popular Super Nintendo. This was supposed to be a groundbreaking partnership, merging two titans of the industry.
A huge deal at the time.
Yeah. But in a surprising turn of events, that deal spectacularly fell through. Nintendo just pulled the plug, basically, opting to go in a different direction.
Yeah, which must have been shocking. I mean, most companies in that situation might have just swallowed the loss, right?
Yeah.
Shelved the technology and moved on. It would have been the, let's say, understandable business decision.
Totally understandable.
But what's fascinating here is that Sony didn't. Not at all. Instead, they took that very same rejected idea, those same engineers, that exact nascent technology, and defiantly transformed it. They decided, okay, if we can't build it with them, we'll build it ourselves.
Wow.
And in 1994, their very own product, the original PlayStation, just burst onto the scene. That this wasn't just a pivot, it was like a reinvention born from rejection, which fundamentally reshaped their entire trajectory.
And their strategy with this new independent console was brilliantly clear right from the start. They didn't just iterate, they innovated, didn't they?
Exactly. They focused squarely on the then revolutionary 3D gaming experience and leveraged the CD technology, which, offered far more storage than the cartridges Nintendo was still using.
A big technical leap.
Huge. But arguably, their most crucial move, I think, was opening their doors really wide to third-party developers. Nintendo had this reputation, maybe deserved, maybe not, for being quite controlling with their partners.
Right. A bit of a walled garden sometimes.
Sort of. Sony, by contrast, offered incredible creative freedom and easier development tools. They basically said, come make cool stuff for our machine.
And that openness was a complete game changer, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It almost immediately led to this flood of instant classics. We're talking about titles that defined a generation. Tekken, bringing that arcade fighting home in amazing 3D.
Love Tekken.
The terrifying immersion of Resident Evil, and of course, the epic cinematic storytelling of Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, Final Fantasy VII. Iconic.
Yeah. These weren't just popular games, they were experiences that made the console genuinely, viscerally worth buying for consumers. For marketers listening, this really shows how a bold strategic move, even one born from, a failed partnership and maybe a bit of defiance, can lay the groundwork for something truly groundbreaking. It's about seizing opportunity where others just see a closed door.
And that groundwork really set the stage for their next masterstroke. Because if the origin story was about creating the product, the next phase was all about making it irresistible. This is where it gets really interesting from a marketing point of view, I think.
Yeah.
Sony didn't just sell a console, they transcended the product's function.
Yeah.
They started selling an emotional state, a feeling, and ultimately an entire aspirational lifestyle. This wasn't about specs anymore, it was about identity.
Yeah, and this raises an important question. How do you actually sell an abstract concept like a feeling or a lifestyle with, a physical piece of hardware?
Good question.
They did it with incredible brilliance through their iconic 1999 Double Life campaign. Do you remember those ads?
Oh, vividly, yeah.
Imagine these commercials. You'd see seemingly ordinary people, a librarian, a businessman, a quiet student, just living their everyday, maybe mundane lives. And then the ad would dramatically cut to them, transformed, immersed in these extraordinary, often chaotic digital worlds through their PlayStation. The tagline was simple, yet so profound. For the players.
Yeah.
It suggested that their mundane reality was just one aspect of who they were. Their true, exciting double life was lived through gaming.
That campaign resonated so deeply, especially with young adults. This wasn't marketing to kids anymore, was it?
Not at all.
It was targeting the 18 to 30-year-olds who were ready for gaming to mature beyond what they would have considered, kiddie content back then.
Exactly.
Double Life didn't just show people playing, it showed them being someone else, escaping into something bigger, something cooler.
Yeah.
It made gaming look edgy, sophisticated almost. I don't know, a form of rebellion.
Yeah, it did. And they didn't stop there. They actively promoted PlayStation in clubs, at music festivals, within underground music scenes.
Right, not just Saturday morning cartoons.
No. It was integrated into cultural touchpoints. PlayStation became a brand for, culture shapers, for those who saw themselves as rebels or adventurers, not just a niche group of hardcore gamers.
That's fascinating.
This is just a masterclass in understanding your audience's deepest aspirations. It highlights how crucial it is to build a brand that speaks to their identity, to who they want to be, rather than just their functional needs for a product. PlayStation became aspirational because it tapped into that universal desire for escape, for excitement, for a more thrilling version of oneself.
Yeah.
It was no longer just a console you played, it was like a portal to a more exciting identity.
So, okay, we've talked about the bold pivot and then this brilliant move to sell an aspiration. What does this all mean for building a lasting brand, one that genuinely retains its audience for, decades?
Well, the next incredibly smart move, I think, was investing heavily, and I mean heavily, in games that delivered powerful, compelling, story-driven content.
Oh, the games themselves.
Yes, this was a fundamental shift. In the earlier days, games were often about high scores or competitive action, which is fine, but PlayStation really leaned into narrative.
Right.
We're talking about titles that redefine storytelling and interactive entertainment. Uncharted.
Felt like playing an Indiana Jones movie.
Exactly. The Last of Us, just a brutal yet beautiful post-apocalyptic narrative exploring profound human connections.
Still think about that one.
The gritty mythological epic of God of War and the dynamic, character-driven adventures of Spider-Man. These weren't just games in the traditional sense. They were cinematic experiences where you, the player, were an integral, active part of the narrative.
You felt like you were in it.
Totally. They focused intensely on emotional depth, character development, and often tough moral choices.
And this strategy built just incredible emotional loyalty, didn't it? The kind that lasts a lifetime. People weren't just playing these games. They were feeling them. I remember finishing The Last of Us Part 2 and just sitting there, silent, for like 10 minutes, completely moved, almost drained by the experience.
Wow. Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Players were crying, cheering, feeling heartbreak, celebrating triumphs, and replaying iconic moments again and again just to relive the story.
Yeah.
This wasn't just entertainment. It was immersive, interactive storytelling that forged this profound personal bond with the player.
Making them part of an evolving narrative.
Yeah, a level of engagement few other mediums truly achieve.
That emotional storytelling is exactly what creates fans for life. It transforms a consumer into an advocate, someone who not only buys your product but becomes a living testament to its impact. It's such a powerful lesson for any brand looking to move beyond simple transactions and build a truly loyal, deeply connected community. If you can make your audience feel something profound,
Right.
they won't just remember your brand, they'll champion it. They'll fight for it almost.
Okay, so building on that foundation of emotional connection, in more recent years, PlayStation really doubled down on community marketing, didn't they?
Yeah.
Taking it to a whole new interactive level. It wasn't just about selling anymore. It was about connecting and maybe co-creating.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how they innovated their communication strategy. They launched State of Play, which is essentially their own online showcase event, like a Nintendo Direct, but for PlayStation.
Right, their own channel.
Exactly. This allowed them to completely bypass traditional media announcements and speak directly to their millions of fans around the world. It built this direct, unfiltered connection, giving fans a sense of being part of an exclusive inner circle. They controlled the narrative, delivering news and reveals straight to their most passionate audience.
That's smart. And they took that connection a step further, too, especially during challenging times. Thinking about the hashtag Play at Home initiative during the global pandemic.
Oh, yeah, that was huge.
They weren't just selling. They were giving back offering free games to keep people engaged, entertained, and connected during a period of just immense uncertainty and isolation.
Mm-hmm.
It was a gesture that spoke volumes, I think, about their understanding of their community's needs beyond just gaming. It positioned them as a brand that genuinely cared.
It really did. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, they've also brilliantly engaged in strategic collaborations that kind of blur the lines between gaming and broader lifestyle.
Right, like a Travis Scott stuff.
Exactly. Partnering with artists like Travis Scott for custom consoles and merchandise, or even venturing into high fashion with collaborations. That wasn't just about cross-promotion. Well,
Right.
not just that. It was about integrating PlayStation into the very fabric of popular culture. Suddenly, PlayStation wasn't just something you played in your living room. It became something you wore, something you saw on a runway, something you talked about on social media.
A cultural artifact.
Precisely. Something you shared as a cultural artifact. This moves the brand beyond entertainment into a full-fledged cultural movement.
All right, so after dissecting PlayStation's remarkable journey, from a rejected idea to this global cultural phenomenon, what concrete lessons can you, as a marketer listening right now, truly learn from their playbook?
Okay, yeah, let's break it down. I think this raises several critical insights for building any powerful brand. First, embrace the bold pivot.
Mhm.
When Nintendo said no, Sony didn't just give up. They said, let's go. That spirit of defiance and innovation, seeing opportunity and rejection, that's key. Don't be afraid to completely redefine your path when an initial plan falls through.
Right. Okay, lesson one, bold pivots. What's next?
Second, you absolutely must sell a lifestyle, not just a product. PlayStation didn't just offer hardware specs. It offered an escape, an aspiration, a different identity. Understand who your audience wants to be and build your brand around that ideal.
Sell the feeling, the identity. Got it.
Third, never, ever underestimate the power of story. Emotional engagement, forged through compelling narratives and characters that resonate deeply, builds that long-term brand love. It transforms casual users into passionate, lifelong fans, like we saw with their blockbuster narrative-driven titles.
Story is power. Makes sense. Number 4.
Fourth, invest profoundly in your community. Give them direct access, like with State of Play. Genuinely listen to their feedback. Empower them to feel like active participants. When you involve your audience in co-creating the brand experience, you build just unshakable loyalty and advocacy.
Invest in the community. Let them co-create. Okay, and finally,
Collaborate across culture. Seamlessly integrate your brand into broader conversations in music, fashion, art, social media. Brands thrive when they become part of the zeitgeist, transcending their original category and becoming a recognized symbol within popular culture. Don't stay in your silo.
be part of the conversation. Wow, okay, so from being this plucky underdog in the 90s, literally born from rejection, to dominating the gaming space and popular culture today, PlayStation is clearly so much more than a console. It's a cultural movement.
It really is. It's a true marketing masterclass showing that great brands don't just advertise products, they build connections, they tell stories, and they become a part of people's identities. So maybe the question for everyone listening is, as you think about your own brand or your own projects, what kinds of deep emotional connections are you building with your audience? Are you just selling a thing? Or are you selling a feeling, a story, a community?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
A great question to end on. Thanks for listening to this deep dive on MKTG Mindset. If you enjoyed unpacking this incredible brand story with us, make sure to follow us for more brand breakdowns, marketing insights, and inspiration each week.
See you next time.
See you next time.